Warriors Unite! Back with another episode of Bigger Warriors 2 in the 1% Club. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are on your purpose. Hope you guys are continuing following to conquest yourselves and conquest things around you and following God's purposes and your Creator's purposes for you. So, hope you guys are doing well, my friend. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for all the feedback. Great topics. We got a bunch coming, shout outs and things like that. But I also appreciate all the fact that you guys want to continue talking about this topic. It's wonderful. There's lots of great stuff out there. The movement is growing stronger and stronger. But we're not just talking about NoFap now. We're talking about self-control. We're talking about all these things that men need to do to kind of bring back that masculine male that we're sorely missing in this society. All right. So anyway, shout outs before we get to our topic. Let's talk about Remington Tufflips. Thank you, my friend, as always. Women staring at you, yes, they will. Women do not get to see the kind of energy that you have, that the person under retention has very often. And so they're going to stare because it's just so much energy, it almost overloads them subconsciously. Alberto Medina, thank you, my friend. Brother Boldly Official Music, again, thank you. Cvato, again. Dirty Men, thank you, my friend. Val Plays 2.0. A lot of our traditional people, I appreciate you guys a great deal. Muad Dib, thank you, my friend. Remington Tufflips, again, thank you. Jon the Dawn, Lighting the Dark. Apostle Maximus, Tobe Van Heirseele, thank you. PJ, thank you. Player-144, got two of them, thank you, my friend. Apostle Maximus and Vikingboar. A lot of our people who've contributed a lot over the years, the last few years, and I appreciate that a great deal. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit, my friend. We're going to talk about several things, talking about overcoming addictions, old habits, derivative. One of our viewers talking about this, so shout out to him on this one. But at 2-minute mark, let's talk about this. Now, we're talking about addictions. Let's take a step back a little bit. As we talk about what we need to do, we have too many people in our society who are caught up in addictions. That is because the world, as we see this, is talking about how you should have pleasure. Pleasure is an important part of being happy. And because of having pleasure, all of a sudden you need to do a lot of things that you normally might not even do. But a lot of these things that people tell you have pleasure with become very addictive. And so as you do this, you become more and more addicted to the idea of happiness and doing this. And it doesn't matter what the addiction is. And people form habits. It takes 21 days to form a habit. It takes 21 days to break a habit around that period of time. And all of a sudden, now you're stuck in another habit. And some of these habits can be very dangerous, especially if we're talking about looking at images and releasing your energy. Those things are very dangerous. And we talked about that several times, how dangerous that can be, even to the point of you kind of dying as time goes on, because you're dying from within, because you're basically losing all those nutrients, all that energy you have, the phosphorus, the lecithin, the magnesium, all these things you're losing because you're basically kind of giving that energy out for nothing. You're not even procreating a child. You're just doing it for pleasure. And the same thing happens. And so our mind's been conditioned to get pleasure out of this. Now, you know there's a problem here whenever you feel guilty after you do it. And I did that for years. So you know it's not right. Something's inside of you, and I think that's God, your Creator, working inside of you, telling you that this is a wrong thing to do. You have that guilty feeling after you've done it. And a lot of men that I've talked to have that feeling. So you know it's not right. But stopping and overcoming the addiction is a hard thing to do. It's hard to break out of that habit. And we're going to talk about how to do that, in a few minutes. But let's go back to the idea of what the addiction is and how we get into this mess for the addiction in the first place. So when we talk about addictions, we're talking about doing something habitually, habit forming, over a period of time. And so why does this happen? Well, in my mind, a lot of the stuff that we deal with when we're talking about things like pornography, We talk about things like images. We talk about things like, even drugs. A lot of these things, overeating, gambling, all these come from the same idea. The idea that you're somehow missing out on something. You're somehow not getting the excitement you should get. And because of that, you got to start by trying this stuff out. Now, as the years go on, we always try things out. We've always done that. No matter who you are, you're going to probably think to yourself, well, let me try this out. The trouble is not trying it out. The trouble is thinking that this is something that's going to make you happy, or peer pressure is going to tell you you've got to do this. And all of a sudden now you got to continue to do this. And now you get more caught up into the idea of, doing more and more and more. And now you get addicted. So when we look at this idea of imaging, this is where you start seeing the problem. And there's a line that you can see when it comes to people and how they can't help themselves. All you gotta do is look at the whole idea of your serial killers. If you look at those, you'll see a lot of them have tendencies to start off and watching movies and being addicted to sex, and then going into deviation. Well, how does this happen? Well, a lot of this happens because they start off having, okay, we're gonna start off with this. Watching a picture, okay? And maybe they're releasing, maybe they're not. Now, they've gotten so used to that, and human brain functions on this saying, okay, we're used to that. Now I'm going to another level. And I'm going to another level because I want to get more excitement. I want to get a bigger thrill. So now I've got to try something else. And now I try a different thing, or I actually release, or maybe I try, having intercourse with somebody, or maybe I try to have intercourse with 3 people. Maybe then I go into doing all kinds of deviant behaviors, and so it doesn't stop. And that's when you get into problems. The same thing happens when it comes to gambling. The same thing happens when overeating. The same thing happens when it comes to drugs. The same thing happens when it comes to images and releasing. All that stuff happens because at some level, you're not able to control yourself, and you're not happy with where you're at, so you want more and more and more. Just like buying a car this year, 6 months from now, no matter what the car is, you may say, I'm tired of this car, I want a new car. People do that with people. I'm with this person, 1 minute, but then I'm tired of this person now. It's time to go on. So all of us get to the sense where if we don't control ourselves and we don't sit and say, okay, we cannot continue to go down this path because this is a bad path. It may start off pretty easy in most people having, okay, well, we're just going to go ahead and have, watch a movie or see something when it has some sex scenes and things like that. But that's where the danger starts. And this is why we talk about the fact that the birds are going to fly over you. You can't help what's going to happen around you. But you can help what you do about it and how you react to it. And do not let the birds put a nest in your head and sit in your head for a long period of time. Because then what happens is that you start saying, okay, I'm used to this behavior. Now I want to do more because I'm not as excited anymore. And because of that, I have to go to the next level. And that may be actually doing something, person. So your mind starts thinking about it. And this is why the Bible talks about the fact that you can create sin by your thinking about it. Now you're going to go into the next level, and it continues to get worse and worse. And this is why you can then see people go into violence even, and things like bondage and all kinds of crazy deviant behaviors, because they're not happy with the spot they're in, and they're used to this, and their mind is saying, I need more stimulation. It all goes down to the stimulation that person has, the pleasure they get out of this behavior. And this is why they start becoming more and more violent, which is the research that I've seen shows that. They become more violent all the time. They get into more deviant behaviors to all kinds of things. And I'm not going to mention those here, but you guys know what I'm talking about. All different types of things. And then they're not happy with that. And so then they become violent types of angry people because of this. And all you got to do is look around you and you can see this. And this is why the men start looking like women, because they lose their masculinity, and when they're releasing all the time, and the more they release, the more they look like women. And the more the women release, they look like men. And the bottom line is when you're looking at this, these women, because of the way the men's behaving and they're becoming weak and they're not strong, the women have to take over. And you see this all the time. I see this in school even. I see the young people. The women, the girls are beating the boys up all the time. And I'm talking about high school. I'm not talking about grammar school. Grammar school, you know, the girls are just as tall as the boys, and you can see some of that happening. But in the high schools, in the college, it's like the males have just taken a back seat on their masculinity. They've lost it. And I go back, and I'll say this again, and maybe this Vigor Warrior is not correct, but I'm going to go back to, everything goes back, as some of the old Indian tribes used to talk about, goes back to the combination of religion and the sexual energy a person has. If you're sitting there, and you could tell, the people who are losing their energy are the people who are basically sitting there saying, okay, I'm destroying myself. They're not going to say that. They don't even know this. They've been brainwashed, not told this is how they're doing. They're destroying themselves by releasing all their energy. As a result of that, they end up changing. Not for the good, they change for the bad. Now, as I told people as well, your body has to react to what you're doing. I had 47 years of problems. It's only now, over the last 6 months or so, you guys can look at the videos, where I've had some kind of major change in how I look and how I talk and everything else. But it's taken 3 years to get to the point where I'm now seeing a lot of this. It's because I had many years of problems. So if you guys are younger, this is the time to start having a plan. Even though you can't, that doesn't mean you have to, you know, if you fall off once in a while, go back. And I have some of our listeners, you know, they've fallen off. We all do that, guys. Don't be so hard on yourself. Just get back up again. It's not how many times you get knocked down. It's how many times you get back up. Keep getting back up. You know the system's right, because you know it based on the benefits you get. You know this is right. You can just feel it inside yourself. You know it. Your creator's telling you this is correct. So if you make a mistake, God understands that as well. He knows we're not perfect, but he knows that we've got to keep trying and have faith that this is going to work out. It goes back to faith. Have the faith that this is going to work out. It's not going to create you all kinds of medical problems, all these other things that people may say. It's not going to cause you all kinds of dysfunction. In fact, the opposite is what's causing it. And you can see that, you know, even back in the old research, back in the 1890s and 1900s, you can see by people going into, you know, having mental health problems. And maybe that's where part of the problem is now. A lot of our mental health issues. And physical, we know physically, people are dysfunctional in their 20s. They're dysfunctional. They have impotence. They have all kinds of stuff. Why is that? Chances are it's because they're releasing all the time. And why is that happening? Well, the body is missing the nutrients. They're losing it. And so these addictions become so strong because you cannot fight it off. Your body cannot fight it off if you have no more energy left, because you're losing all your vitamins, you're losing your things. This semen stuff is powerful. When Keller talks about the fountain of youth, yeah, he's talking about the exercises. But he was really talking about, which is not stated directly, but really indirectly, is that the semen is your fountain of youth. That is the key. It took me a long time to figure this out. Because once I did the 5 rites, I got some success because of the chakras will keep moving, and I believe that's accurate. But I also believe when you did the 6th one, now all of a sudden, now I see some rapid improvement. And that's because I believe I'm getting better as time goes on and transmuting this energy up through the system. And that's the key thing, because you want your semen to be able, your seed, you want it to be able to regenerate yourself. And I think that's possible. I really do. And I think the key is going to be, can you control yourself to get your stuff done Focus on getting activities. Focus on doing things. Don't focus on the women. Forget about the women. The women will always be there. You want to find someone, companionship, things like that. But if you're on your purpose, guys, you'll see eventually you're doing so many things, you're not lonely. And in fact, people can be lonely, and we talked about this before, even when they're around people, especially when releasing. Again, I felt lonely and anxiety, depression when I was releasing all the time because you're not at full strength. And those other things, and even one can sap in and get you. Give you some depression. And I think Satan one time said that in one of the things that I saw, maybe it was just a meme or whatever it might be. They were asking Satan, which is the one thing that you want to use to destroy people? They said plagues and things like that. He says, no, what I want is discouragement. When you lose hope, then I can get you with anything else. And when you don't have hope and faith that this is going to work, that God is working with you, and God has given you this. I mean, think about this. God has given you, warriors, all this nutrients. Why in the world are we spilling this out? It's because we've been blindsided and brainwashed in thinking this is the healthy thing to do. If God really wanted to do that, he would have found other ways to give us this information. And given us this and telling us to do this in different ways, right? But because of that, we know that's not true. We know it's not something that we're using. So why do this? So that, to my friends, is the key to the whole thing. So when you come to overcome addictions, the key is try to get yourself busy, transmute this stuff, and don't allow yourself to have time to focus on whatever the addiction is. Find things that keep yourself busy, get goals together, focus on the goals, focus on trying to get your mind off of the images, visualize positive, visualize yourself succeeding, and visualize yourself moving away from whatever your addiction is. Especially if it's the images, stay away from late night stuff doing it, stay away from focusing on the women at night, focus during the day if you have to because of business situations, other situations, but don't spend a lot of time in dangerous situations thinking about the addiction. And little by little, step by step, you can overcome this and be stronger. And as you overcome one addiction, you overcome another. And as you do this over time, this becomes important. Sometimes I always like to sit down and write down all the faults that I have. And I try and knock them out one by one. I go back with the old thing that Benjamin Franklin used many, many years ago. 100 years ago. He wrote down all his faults. He had many of them, like I have. But you sit down and try to overcome them one by one. And you're bound to become a better person in that case. All right, friends, enough talk. Hope you guys are enjoying this one. Thank you to Derivative for our comment tonight. I hope you guys got something out of this one. Once again, do not let the addictions control you. You control the addictions and get them out of your life for good. All right, friends, always remember two things. One, every day is a new day to a great warrior. And number two, guys, don't forget to battle on! Have a good night, my friends. Adios.